It's been revealed that European birth rates are at an all-time low. Last year, just 3.7 million babies were born in the EU. That's the lowest number on record. Is this terminal decline for European society? I'm Miriam Cates, and I'm asking, why does it matter that Europe is having a baby bust? Well, if we look at the figures, the numbers of babies born has declined, particularly in Eastern Europe. Perhaps not surprising, given the war that's going on there with Russia. But Western Europe is suffering too, and the UK is not in a great position. We are now at just 1.4 babies being born per woman. That means that over the course of a woman's lifetime, so before the age of 45 or 50, she will just have, on average, 1.4 babies. Why does that matter? Well, in order to have what we call a stable population, so one baby being born for every person that dies, a woman needs to have on average 2.1 babies during the course of her lifetime. And actually, this is what women want. Most women want either 2 or 3 children. But this isn't happening. And in fact, for the first time ever, most women get to the age of 30 without having a child. It matters for women, it matters for families. But why does this matter for our economy? Well, on one level, it doesn't matter how big or small our overall population is. In fact, some people would say that the population of Britain has gone up too fast over recent years. And the main reason for that is, of course, immigration. But it does matter how many babies there are compared to people who are older. Because for every person who retires, we need one person to come into the workplace in order to replace them in the labour force, but also to pay taxes, to pay for pensions and healthcare and things like that. And that's where we've seen this extraordinary and very frightening decline. So when I was born, there were 4 working age people for every pensioner in this country. Now there were 3 working age people for every pensioner. And soon there will be just 2 working age people for every pensioner in the country. If you think taxes are high now, if you think the pressure on the health service and social care is high now, we have seen nothing yet. Because in the 60s, about 1 million babies were born a year at peak. Last year, fewer than 600,000 babies were born in this country. So now, every person that retires, every person that goes on to take a pension, to use the healthcare system, is not being replaced by somebody coming into the workforce. This has huge economic consequences. Now, in some ways in Britain, the challenge faced by this birth rate decline has been masked by high levels of immigration. Now, of course, that immigration has been deeply unpopular and it has changed our society in ways that many of us regret. But nevertheless, it has hidden the problem of not enough young people coming into the labour force because employers have had access to plenty of people from other countries who are willing to work in low-paid jobs. But if we take a look at countries that have not had high levels of immigration, so Japan and South Korea, for example, and to some extent Eastern Europe, they are in big trouble. South Korea has the lowest birth rate in the world. On average, a woman just has 0.78 children. And if you think about the future consequences of this, it is stark. For 100 South Korean people alive today, on average, they will just have 15 grandchildren between them. So 100 people in just 2 generations becomes 15. We're not talking about a minor reduction in population. We're talking about demographic collapse. Who is going to pay tax? Who is going to build houses? Who is going to run the health system? There simply are not going to be enough young people going into the workforce in order to replace those who are leaving it and to pay taxes to support welfare system. This is a problem that people across the West are grappling with. One of the main issues is that people still believe a lie, if you like, or misinformation that's been around for 50, 60 years, that the world is overpopulated, that we won't be able to feed ourselves, that we simply don't have the resources for humanity to survive. Now, history has proven that to be completely false. Fewer people are starving now than ever before. Fewer people live in absolute poverty than ever before. And yes, we do have a larger population in the world than we've had before, but we're not running out of space. And actually, one of the main reasons that population is high is because life expectancy has increased so much. And so the low birth rate hasn't yet taken its toll on overall population because people are still living longer, and particularly in poorer countries in continents like Africa and Asia. That's obviously had a very big impact on the overall population. But the world population will start to decrease this century probably because the number of babies being born is so low. It's not just a Western problem. It's not just a problem in rich countries where it's always been the case that as countries get richer and more industrialised, birth rates tend to fall. We're also now seeing catastrophically low birth rates in places like India and China, places where the population is very poor but is still having very few babies. So why is this? Why are people having so many fewer babies than they were in previous centuries? Well, some of these advances that we've seen are, of course, good things. The fact that women get more education, the fact that women are in the workplace, the fact that people have more choice about their family size. Of course, they are good things. But we also know that many people don't have the children that they want. Around 30% of young women today probably won't have a child at all. Yet only 8% of young women say they don't want to be mothers. So there are huge emotional and social consequences of this, as well, of course, as the economic problems. So what do we do? Well, some countries, Hungary notably, have tried to throw money at the problem, to pay people not to have children, but to give people financial incentives, tax incentives, to make it easier for people to have bigger families, more maternity pay, those kind of things. South Korea, lots of employers now are giving financial benefits to people having children, but they don't seem to be making much difference. And I think the answer is cultural as much as economic. Yes, it's difficult to buy houses. Yes, childcare is expensive. All those things are true, but nevertheless, we are richer now than we ever have been. So it can't just be about money. I think it's about culture. I think we have downgraded the status of parenthood. We now see children as a choice, a private choice. Only do it if you can afford it, rather than seeing having children as a huge benefit to society. In fact, the future of our society, and supporting parents and grandparents as they do the amazing job of raising the next generation. We've made it impossible to survive on one income when children are small. So parents, often mothers, have to make the decision to put their child in childcare very soon after it's born, which is not the preference of many. Let's take a look at Israel. Israel is the only Western country that has an above replacement birth rate. In other words, it's the only Western country that has a demographic future. What's so special about Israel? They think having children is a good thing. Having children is a high status thing for people of all social classes. Even the wealthiest people in Israel, where normally birth rates are low, have on average 3 or more children. Now, there are lots of things about Israel that we wouldn't want to repeat. Being at war, being surrounded by neighbours that very much want you gone. But on the other hand, this idea of pronatalism, this idea that having children is a good thing, that we should welcome children and support children and not see it just as a private endeavour. I think there's a lot to learn from that. The problem we have in this country is that we're barely even talking about the issue. When I've spoken about this issue in the past, I've been called far right, or I've been accused of wanting to send women back to the kitchen. Now, nothing is further from the truth. I want young women to be able to have the opportunities I had. I've got 3 children. I feel so blessed to be a mum of 3. And I know that there are lots of young women out there who desperately want to become mothers, but because of all the combinations of social and cultural and economic pressure, they feel not able to have that children. The best thing we can do as a society is to start to welcome children again, to support parents, to not see having children as selfish, but actually a huge investment in society. Because one thing is clear, everything we value about Britain, our public services, our social cohesion, our trust, our history, our culture, will not continue if we don't have enough children. It's not too late for Britain to turn it around, but one thing is clear. We need to wake up to the problem of low birth rates. We need to understand what it means for our future economy, our future society, our future culture if we don't have enough children. And we need to recognise that although it is costly to have children in the early years, of course the taxpayer is paying towards the cost of education. It's nothing compared to the cost of not having those children, who then can't pay tax, can't contribute to society, can't care for the elderly when they're old. So we need to all come together, recognise the value of children. Perhaps we do need to incentivise or at least reward and support parents financially who have children. But most of all, it needs to be a welcoming society for children, for parents. Let's make being a parent high status again.